Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, host of the Riderflex podcast and founder and CEO of our day job recruiting firm, Riderflex. We hope you enjoy this episode. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast for updates and news. Finally, if you haven't already, check out the series of books we've published on hiring, interviewing, and overall career advice titled The Riderflex Guide, available on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Most homeowners don't have the time or expertise to properly take care of their home, which causes costly issues to arise. That's where Kira Home Maintenance comes in. We're a full-service, routine maintenance company that was developed by a certified home inspector. Each quarter, we service our clients' homes following manufacturer's recommendations to properly maintain all the necessary appliances. We provide the materials and expertise to prolong the life of your property, creating a healthy and efficient environment for your family. From top to bottom, we'll maintain and service your home. To get started, we have a property inspection to determine what needs to be maintained, and a maintenance plan is created based on your preferences. From refrigerator coils to filters, vents, and drains, we do it all, and we do it well. Contact us today for your free routine maintenance inspection, and never worry about your maintenance again.
Juha Berghäll on the Riderflex podcast from Finland today. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Glad to be here.
5 o'clock over there. Thank you for joining me. It's 8 o'clock here in Colorado, the U.S., 8 a.m. So thank you for doing this. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Interesting story, interesting career, great career. And was, studying some of your stuff this morning while I'm watching some stuff while I was on the treadmill. I found you on YouTube on another interview and so forth. So I want to get into business, but first I want to talk about the person, Juha. Well, tell her, did you grow up in Finland? You're from Helsinki. What, give us the family story. Give us a little background.
Yeah. Grew up in Finland, Helsinki area. Both of my parents are, business owners, small business. So
okay,
it's sort of a destiny. It's in the DNA. Entrepreneur. Grew up in sort of a team sports. That's my thing. Ice hockey, football, soccer. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's how I've been building my businesses as well. That's all about the team. Sort of how do you make people work together for a common goal? That's that's how I grew up.
Okay. And, okay. So the entrepreneurial bug came from your parents early on. What kind of businesses did they have?
It's just a small. My dad's. They actually had us. We have a little bit of influence of bringing services. Business for household appliances to Finland back in 1950s, 60s from Sweden. Wow. I have a little bit Finnish-Swedish background. As you might know, Finland is a bilingual country, so we have Finnish and Swedish. So that's my dad's side, and sort of being the shop, working with household appliance myself back in the day. And then this thing called, I would say, computers and IT stuff came about, and kind of got interested into that. So
did your mom help in the businesses with your dad, or did she do something separate?
Well, actually, my mom is she's a barber.
Oh, okay, all right. Is she still working?
Still. Wow. She's 70 something, and still. I wonder how many ears need to be dropped and cut off before she stops. So
are they nearby you? Are they close?
Yeah, like an hour drive.
Okay. By the way, what's the difference between Finnish and Swedish? What's in layman's terms, in simple commoner terms, how would you describe the difference?
Well, I guess if you ask from Swedes, we are the little brother. So the history goes that Finland has been part of Sweden. Sweden overruled us back in the day. Russia overruled us back in the day.
Okay.
So there's a kingdom, and we are the peasants for that, I'd guess. So the story goes so that Finns have been really great in fighting all the wars for Sweden. So
interesting.
We are their landmine between Russia.
So I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know the history. So it was part of Sweden first, and then Russia, then part of Russia, but then independent. When did it separate from Russia? How long? What year was that? Do you know?
1917. 1917. So
before World War One or something like that, or
yeah,
right
that's sort of that's where we sort of declared and sort of 100 and something years independence.
How about that?
So if you think about the Europeans and if you want to understand Finns, if you talk to Irish people, then you might like understand they have gone kind of a similar setup, overruled by United Kingdom.
Yeah.
So a little bit like like modest, that bad things might happen to you. You keep it to yourself. But we are the happiest nation in the world.
Is that right? If you Google that, you're the happiest. Is that right? Why do you think that is?
A lot of people ask that. I guess that comes from the fact that we understand that like the things might change. I think that's sort of inbuilt in the culture that you don't really brag around, and like when you have a lot of like, even though you have wealth and stuff like that, you don't talk about it. You're just happy as it is. Which is in turn, I think, as an entrepreneur living in Finland, it's kind of has a downside as well. Like you're not pushing your limits. You're not taking risks as such. Kind of when we rebuilt this, like, the society and the country after the war, that's when we have a lot of like this entrepreneur spirit in the country. All the people joined, like rebuilding the whole like culture and nation, everything around it. And then when you get to a certain stage, like welfare, then you start getting a little bit lazy. And that's, I think, it's a little bit like we are the happiest nation in the world. We have like everything is like, as I said, Finland, as I typically say, is that Finland is a prepaid country. So everything is prepaid through taxation. So you don't really have to worry about your kids going to school. Can you afford the universities? Healthcare, all that, it's taken care of. If you just pay the tax, that's it. It's prepaid. Yeah, it's not free, it's prepaid.
Prepaid. Yeah, I like that. I like that term. What are your taxes? Like 60%?
No, not that much. So
50?
The thing depending how much you earn, because it's progressive. So it hits on the like when you hit 6 figures yearly income, then it starts really hitting you.
Okay. Well, so it's best to make 90.
Well, yeah. The income tax is not the only problem. I think it's more like in Finland in general, like people are getting older. Who is gonna like keep up paying taxes so that we can have the services across?
Yeah,
and so.
Plus, you have to worry about Putin. You have to worry about Russia. Or do you guys ever worry about anything crazy like that? Or that's not really, you're not worried about it?
Yeah. Well, we share around 1,500 kilometers of border with that guy.
I say I'm actually looking at the map as you're talking.
Yeah. So I was actually a couple of years ago. I was in Toronto, Canada, and I was talking with the guys there, and I was saying that we have something in common, that you guys share something like 8,000 kilometers of border with lunatic. We only have 1,500. That was the time when Trump was president. So we kind of.
Yeah. So you don't worry at all? It doesn't make you nervous?
Well, we're a little bit less nervous, I think, at the moment, since we just joined NATO, which is a really, really big thing for us.
Okay.
We back in the like Second World War and things like that, when shit went down, so to speak, we were left alone in the middle of big boys playing their games, and now it's a kind of a thinking that we really don't want to be alone anymore, and we've been always leaning to West, whole like the NATO, and like we have really, really like a long-term relationship with US, especially in the like armed forces and military level. So, and actually, back in the day after the war, I don't know if you you remember this martial age that was like it was, I think the UK was drivers, but they were sort of supporting countries after the war.
Oh,
and like the West Allies. And one of the things that they provided was free education for English teachers in Finland.
oh, interesting.
So all the kids in Finnish schools, they go through the, of course, Finnish language, the main one, and then Swedish and English. So most of the Finns speak English sort of at least on sufficient level.
I see. If you go to the grocery store, what's the primary language?
Finnish, but you will cope with English as well.
Do they like tourists? What if if I go over there and I go to the grocery store, do they look at me like, "What the hell are you doing here?" Or how do they feel?
Well, if you don't shout, you're not behaving yourself, not being this stereotypical American, then we will love you.
So that's what and we'll get off of this topic, but that's what they think of the U.S. in general. Like we're loud, we brag,
yeah.
we're
Yeah,
the
indeed.
cowboy,
Exactly.
wild cowboys.
Exactly.
That's pretty funny. That's good stuff. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for sharing some of that. By the way, any siblings, and also, what about you now? Do you have a partner, spouse, married, kids? Give me some more detail.
I'm the oldest one, so I have a little brother 2 years younger, and then little sister 6 years younger.
Okay.
I'm 47 myself, and I think one of the biggest achievements for me is that I'm still married with the same woman after 20 something years.
Cool.
So that's my my sort of two daughters, 18 and 16.
Oh, all right. Teenagers. Teenagers. Have they gotten any trouble yet, or have anything interesting happen?
It has been. I'm knocking on wood, but but it's like it has been relatively smooth sailing. They both do their schools, college, high school ending for an older one, and then team sports both. So it's a sort of a good stuff so far.
Okay. You haven't caught anybody sneaking out, climbing out the window at night or anything? Nothing fun?
Maybe some minor, but it's part of the growing up, as you know.
Oh, yeah, of course. And were you like a straight A student, good kid, or did you get in any trouble? Were you a rebel? Tell me about you when you were young.
Well, I was one of my co-founders said once when I turned 40 that now I'm starting to get younger, since I always been a little bit like this old soul. So I've been the rational one. I've been the one who takes care of everything when they are screwing around. So that has been my role, I guess. So I still have my time coming, I guess, after the kids.
Yeah. Very good. What's your wife do?
Huh?
Your wife? What does your wife do?
Well, she brings this more realistic view to the world. She works with social services, like this child care, child support, all of those like nasty stuff happening in people's lives.
I see.
Supporting kids at the moment in school, and sort of that's a reality check for me. Sitting behind the keyboard and a laptop, and it's a different story.
Your wife's a very patient, loving person that cares about people. Then, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. So you had the entrepreneurial bug early, because your parents were entrepreneurs. But at first you had a few regular jobs in there before you started a business, right? Yeah. I think.
Mm-hmm.
But did you know, I mean, did you early on were you like, yeah, this is cool, but I'm gonna start something? Was that always a plan?
No, of course not. So as you asked about my straight A student, no, I wasn't. I was like getting through. I was never interested in the kind of university studies or anything like that. But I went to, like, I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, IT. So sort of that's my. It took almost 6 years to finish. Some people graduate as a doctors and be like PhD within that time. So, but I worked. It was like .com boom era, late 90s.
I see.
When if you studied a little bit something IT related, you got the job. Like people were like brought from schools directly to do work. That happened to me as well. So I've been in like since then working regularly, and the whole idea, I'd guess the IT was just I've been always interested into like technology and the latest development on when it comes to cars. Cars have been my thing.
Is that right? Okay. Do you have like
Yeah.
what do you have in your garage? What do you have? Give me one or two.
I must admit that I jumped to this bandwagon of EVs. So I'm driving Audi e-tron GT.
Oh, okay.
So the only car that I sort of the German cars have been my weakest thing. So we are having
that's what you spend money on. That's what you spend money on, and your wife's like, yeah, okay, gotcha. She's like, why are you spending money on that?
You should see the car prices in Finland. So it's
really? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sorry. Anyway, I got off track. Sorry. Anyway, you loved the computers, you liked the IT stuff, you loved technology. Okay. All right.
So I went to school. Of course, they were like teaching coding and software development stuff like that, and I quite early noticed that it's not my thing, like this logical mathematical approach. But I noticed that I'm actually really good at combining things. So like not just focusing on one thing. Maybe it's a little bit like I'm not diagnosed, but ADHD approach that my brain can like function multiple things at the same time without me being stressed. So then I went more like this consultancy, like combining talking, explaining solutions for the clients and stuff like that. And
the connection between the coders and the regular people.
Yeah, sort of trying to explain and translate the benefit of XYZ. So that sort of hit me, and I've always been super visual, so visualizing things, simplifying through visualization. That has been my sort of a interest all the times, even though I cannot draw. So thank God we have AI nowadays that I can ask. So that's sort of where everything started, and then I jumped into this like early stage startup IT service management software company called Efecte. That was sort of the most prominent one that I've been. .com era was different. There were a lot of interesting stories. I actually earned my first bucks, like first dollar through the .com era.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. You had an exit? Did you have like a successful exit where you got a big payout?
Yeah, I earned that first dollar.
Wow.
One.
Yeah. One. Oh, so. One. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So when you were when you were at Efecte, okay, then what were you at that time? Well, no, then you took then you then you became a founder of your first company shortly after.
Yep. Yeah.
Give me the story there.
Verco Oy. What happened with that Efecte software company still exists. It's a great company. But they had an idea that they would focus fully on software as a service. So that was the era of software as a service times back then. And we had a really good, like I was a country manager for Finland. So we had this like services arm and things like that. And customers really loved the consultants. They helped them out to implement and stuff like that. Then we thought that, well, if company wants to go full-blown software as a service, why don't we start take the consultancy piece, start building IT consultancy around it. So that was sort of the idea, and there we went. And we grew company around 30 people.
Okay.
And simultaneously we started ONEiO, which is the current project that we are now doing.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So it was sort of a spin-off consultancy.
I see. All right. And so that was a project or some sort of spin-off project that you were assigned to, and then you captured some ownership.
Yeah, sort of. We owned both of these companies, and we sold consultancy business 2.5 years ago because we wanted to really like focus on this one thing.
I see.
ONEiO that we are now doing, but the thing is that the whole idea of ONEiO actually started from this consultancy. Because we saw that, this integration space is really complex. Nobody really wants to integrate. It's like, oh, hideous thing. And we were part of the problem because we were the consultants who try to build integrations for enterprise customers.
Okay.
Didn't scale. It's really hard. It's complex. It's really hard to find the best resource, the best people to work for you. And consultancy businesses are hard to scale, as you know. It's all about the people. We thought that, well, we know this space really well. Why don't we sort of solve the problem for us and the customers so that we would remove this complex building part of integrations? Let's automate that. So we start developing our own proprietary integration platform that would automate the delivery part so that we don't have to go around like hiring hundreds of consultants.
Okay.
And then we would provide it as a continuous like subscription-based service that the integrations work after that. Because typically traditional approach is you build something and then you hope that it works.
Yep.
So that's where we are. So we sort of cannibalized that part of the business and turn it into a software as a service.
I see. Do you have ownership? Do you have equity in the company? What's the makeup of the ownership and where do you play in all of it?
Currently.
Currently you have ownership.
Yeah.
You were a founding partner. You were a founding partner.
Yeah, we have four founders in the current setup, and then we have 2 VCs on board.
You have 2 VCs. Okay. Are the 4 founders still in control, or the VCs are in control now because
we have around 60% at the moment. With
the 4 founders still have 60%. Yeah. Good for you.
That is maybe super stubborn on giving up any parts of the company.
I mean, you've heard the stories, right? I mean, there's so many stories. As soon as the founders give up more than 51% to PE or VC, I mean, sometimes it goes fine. I mean, there's good stories out there, but so often I've had entrepreneurs on the podcast and, they've said, oh my God, as soon as I give up more than 51%, my life was a fucking nightmare. I've just heard this so many.
And then you have to be really, really careful when it comes to shareholder agreements, what is the exit clause and things like that. So we are in the same boat with the VCs as well, if there's exit. So in that sense, it's quite good setup at the moment.
Good. The founders, there was 4 of you. The other 3, did they have functional skill sets that complemented yours? Was there like a programmer or a marketer? What were the other guys or other guys or girls? What were their functions compared to yours?
Yeah, well, of course we have the geek.
Yeah, of course.
All the software companies have to have the geek. So Kai, who is the CTO, he has designed the whole cloud infrastructure, architectures, all this. He has built everything. So when we started back in the day, he sent his family over the Christmas. He sent his family to his mom's place over the Christmas and started writing the code. So we had the first version out like in a couple of weeks after deciding go to that path. So he's one of these guys. Wow. And then we have Janne, who is the co-founder. He's been in consultancy. He's been the one who had to deliver for the customers.
Okay.
So all the features and functions that we currently have in our solution are coming from his own dramas of being there in the deep end, trying to deliver against my promises. So I've been the promise department. He's the delivery.
I like that. It's good.
And then we have Olli. Olli is actually, he has a background in corporate law. So he's been in this he's been our CFO. He's been the Excel guy who has kept a little bit, hand on a brake.
Were you guys all friends when you worked at the previous company? Did you all work together? How did you form your little team?
Yeah, well, Kai and Janne they both worked at Efecte back at times. So that's our connection. And then Olli I met in one of the startup events early stage, and that's sort of so we are not friends, which is actually good. That we still have our own lives outside the company, which is, I think it's super, super important. People would have that.
Yeah, that's
Otherwise, you screw up your friendship if you screw up the business. And in business, there might be something that are not related to friendship, but you have to make nasty decisions which screw up your friendship.
Yes. Speaking of nasty decisions, before you took on the VC money and it was just you 4, how did you have the equity split up? Was it equal shares for the 25% 4 ways?
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you were voting? What if it was 2 against 2? Did you flip a coin when you guys were arguing about something? How did you decide? I was curious.
Well, actually, that's a really good question. It's something that we are like proud, but also humble about it. Is that we've been always um, been able to figure things out, four of us, so that there are no like split 50-50 or anything like that. So because all of us have like certain strengths in our own area, so we have never felt that somebody is stepping on somebody else's toe, and that has helped a lot. There has been a trust, which has been the main thing between us, and we trust and respect each other on the level that there is no need to like poke, like what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah. Who was the cash raise? Were you the cash raise lead? Were you the one
Yeah.
talking to the VCs, selling the
Yeah.
deck, doing the whole thing? Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
Did you have experience raising cash before that, or was this your first time doing that?
First time, yes.
Tell the
But we
listeners
raised.
tell the listeners what it's like to sit in a room with full of VCs and ask them to write a check.
Well, sort of when you know what you're doing, then it's sort of. I've always enjoyed performing in front of people and putting myself
Okay.
into this shitty situations that I don't really know what I'm doing, but maybe I can explain. Let's talk. That's one of my maybe my survival skills. But it's of course it has been fundamental that I had Olli helping out with the numbers.
Okay.
That's super important that you have you have to back up your story with the numbers, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a nice slide deck doesn't sell. They won't never understand your business, but they will always understand the numbers.
Great point. Great point. Where were you? I don't know how much you want to share. I know it's still a private company, but where were you from a revenue and profitability perspective when you were pitching? Were roughly like you were, I'm guessing you were EBITDA cash flow positive. Or were you burning
Nope.
cash, or what
We
was
were
your
burning.
You were burning.
We were
Okay.
burning already then. So 2018 was the first round seed round 2018, and I think we were around 1.5 million,
And
something
revenue.
like a little bit over €1 million recurring revenue, and our model is recurring revenue model.
Yeah.
So we already had traction.
Which is great. Yeah.
That's exactly what we want to do. So 95% of the revenue is recurring.
I mean, hey, investors love that. So, cool.
Yeah. So we had that, and we had traction. We have a nice logos from home turf, like from the Scandinavian Nordics insurance companies already utilizing it. So that was the first step.
But you were now. Can I pause you right there, because the listeners, a lot of the listeners, they get fascinated about the early part of this. When you were working towards that million in revenue, were you guys all paying yourselves a little bit of something, but not much? And were you and how were you surviving if you were burning cash? Were you surviving from the seed money, or did you guys put in cash? I just want to know early on, how were you making it, basically?
Yeah. Well, in the early stage, we used customer revenue, our own money, to really grow up and build a kind of a solid foundation as a product. So that's, but also at times we still had that consultancy business. So we didn't take any salaries from ONEiO. So we invested everything.
I see.
And we had the consultancy business at the side. So I was like CEO of both companies at the same time.
I see. Okay.
I was doing selling as a consultancy, but it was also a stepping stone for the customers, because that consultancy business was selling to our ideal customer profile for integration service. Mm-hmm. So we were leveraging those relationships that we already had.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that was the early stage. So we always say that ONEiO has been like a proper company since 2015. That's when we start paying salaries to ourselves.
Okay, and that's a great. Let's pause right there for the listeners. Great point. If you have some friends and you want to start something, you can prop up your new company with proceeds from something everybody else is kind of doing on the side at first. If you need to, right? And that's a lot of people do that, right? I mean, that's how you can get it going, to show traction and so forth. Okay, great. And then it finally got to a point to where the cash flow was good enough for you guys to stop doing your other thing, Now
Yeah.
you're in it. Then you all dove in full time, started paying yourselves. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Was the
One
wife,
one
was your wife a little bit nervous when you were doing, was she fully supportive, or was she like, hey, just go get
yeah,
a regular job, or?
she's a little bit like crazy like me. So in that sense that we believe that we need like really we are risk takers in that sense,
Okay.
in a sort of a, I would say, Finnish perspective, risk takers. So 2010 we actually both quit our day jobs,
Well,
bought a new house, moved outside Helsinki. We already had kids then, and then we start figuring out what the fuck we are doing. So that's sort of a clean slate. And she was full on it. She was like, okay, what is the worst thing that could happen? Like,
go get a regular job. Just go get a job, I guess. Right.
yeah,
I mean,
something like that. So she's been always fully supportive, and we have also this like a trust between us that she has never challenged anything like this, and
cool.
been like
That's great.
on it.
That's very good. Okay, cool. So now, the company is, I don't know how much you can share. How big is the company
Mhm.
in employees, revenue? Like where are you guys at now, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, happy to. So we are around 40 people. The
Cool.
operations are the HQ is in Helsinki, Finland.
Okay.
And we have operations in the main like expansion market. So we are market expansion phase at the moment. The Nordics, Finland is like, it's not a market, it's a kind of like, it's a village. So
Okay.
if you want to grow, you have to go outside. So Germany, DACH region, Central Europe, UK, and US. So we have subsidiary in Germany and US. We have had a little bit of team in Atlanta, Georgia,
Okay.
last year, but then we needed to like little bit like do the risk management. So unfortunately, we needed to cut that team off. We have customers still in the States.
Okay.
So
How are you servicing those customers in the States? So I guess it's easy to do if it's an ongoing SaaS
yeah,
business.
in that sense, there is not that much to do.
Who in the US is knocking on doors to sell and get you more clients? Who's doing that?
Well, at the moment, it's more like a little bit opportunistic, I would say.
I know
At the
a
US
really
market.
cool recruiting firm named Riderflex that can find you a sales guy for the US. We can talk afterwards.
Oh, interesting. Well, the US is of course our like main target market at the end of the day. If you think about IT services market in
Yeah.
like it's a whole sum, it's like the Scandinavia Nordics, it's 15 billion in total.
Wow.
Germany 50, UK 80, US 400 billion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's if you really want to grow fast, and that's our like sort of next level is to actually, as we speak, we are starting another round of financing to really boost up the market expansion.
Very good. Okay. I was going to ask you if you were in another cash raise. What are you raising this time?
It's going to be like a round 15 million.
Okay. Let's talk afterwards after the recording's over. I have a bunch of investors that are part of our advisory board here at Riderflex. And anytime I have guests on that are raising cash, they usually want to know or get a copy of the deck or whatever.
Yeah.
When you raise this next round, are you going to have to move the four founders into a position of less than?
I guess it's gonna be like that, but it's sort of a part of the evolution as well.
It is. I mean, it is. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah,
there are still options, not only yeah. But
sorry. I was gonna say, make sure you get a little payday in there.
secondaries are definitely in play this time.
Yeah, you got to pay that country house off that you and your wife live in. I don't know. Is there, do you live outside of the city or where do you live? Or you live like in a suburb or do you have like
outside?
land?
Yeah,
okay.
It's around like 45 minutes from Helsinki.
How many acres do you have?
not like
it's nothing.
No,
it's nothing like that. Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, not a farm.
It's not a farm. Oh, okay.
No.
I'm visualizing that you live like up on a hill somewhere with a bunch of acres.
Yeah,
no, that's not.
That's
not it.
Colorado. I'm gonna imagine Colorado is like that.
Sorry. Okay. You have to send me a photo. Snap me when you go home tomorrow. Send me a photo or something. Okay. Very
so
cool.
dark here that you cannot take photos yet.
Are you off? Do you guys all office from home, or do you have an office there? Or do you work from home? Do you have an office there? Yeah.
We have a hybrid setup. After COVID times, we are trying to, as everybody else is trying to figure out how the hybrid works.
Yeah.
So that's where we have a nice office in Helsinki.
Okay. By the way, for the listeners, it is one, not the number one, but the word one, ONEiO.cloud is the website. Will you give us a layman's term 3-minute elevator pitch on what you do for the listeners, for the commoners, just what you do? And by the way, it was interesting. I went into ChatGPT and I pasted in your website URL and I said, in language from a fifth grader, tell me what this company does.
Yeah.
Interesting response. It basically said, it was something like, imagine a bunch of different, if you had a Nintendo and a PlayStation and a this and a this and this, you had a bunch of different game consoles and you wanted all these consoles to talk to each other and play one game with your friends. That's what ONEiO does, or something like that. What do you think about, what do you think about that description?
That's actually quite spot on.
Yeah.
That's sort of a, yeah.
Giving to it. Yeah. Tell us, give me the elevator pitch.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it requires a little bit of background, but the integration space, enterprise integration space, it's heavily relying at the moment to these traditional project-based business models.
Okay.
So people are having some kind of an integration platform, and then they start building integrations on top of that. So it's and then they have to manage it. The way we operate is that you don't build anything, you subscribe the integrations you need. Our service takes care of the setup of the integrations and running of the integrations. And you pay the subscription fee, pay per use, that's it. So you don't invest into resources, you don't pay any project fees, you just utilize it. So we remove these traditional bottlenecks when it comes to enterprise integration, like building, figuring out specification, development, maintenance, support, all that jazz. It, in turn, we can deliver like complex integrations in 2 weeks maximum calendar time. That's our promise. We have never failed.
Wow.
2 weeks, 0 to 100.
Wow.
Comparison to this project-based approach takes 3 to 6 months per integration. Maybe if the specification is okay, if nothing changes when you're building it. So it reduces dramatically the time to integration, time to value. And then it runs on a cost level that you can afford it. It's not going to cost you millions.
I was about to ask you, is your target base small to medium-sized companies that can actually afford this service, or are you only pitching to Fortune 500? Yeah, I was about to ask you that.
Kind of a mid-size, I guess in the US market, it's mid-size large enterprises who are, they have a proper IT department. So there's an IT department who are using a lot of these suppliers. They need to integrate them, their IT supply chain. But also we work with different kind of service providers who need to figure out how they actually integrate their services to their customers and their subcontractors. So it's a sort of in high level, we enable IT supply chain automation. So there are different parties delivering IT related services like service desk, help desk, things like that, managing infrastructure, etc. And there are certain processes that you need to participate. For instance, incident management, stuff like that. So that goes a little bit deep, but still, so that's our role in this space. We are operating in enterprise integration space. Our domain is IT. If you are delivering or managing technology services, we are the best integration partner for you.
And is it a monthly subscription, yearly subscription? And is there a one-time setup initiation fee and then a monthly? Well, how's your business model? What's your
default is yearly 12 months advanced payment subscription.
12 months advance. I see.
Yeah. Okay. No setup fees. You just pay the monthly fee.
I see. What if the company's like, well, I don't know if I can afford 12 months up front. How about 6 months? Who do they negotiate with? Juha?
We are happy to negotiate if you give something in return. Like if you are, let's say, a GM, we are happy to use your logo and reference and stuff like that.
I do. Oh my God. I've done so many deals. Like I've done so many deals like that for Riderflex, our recruiting firm. You know, when we get a big company that calls, like Chevron, like we started doing some recruiting for Chevron.
Yeah.
And I remember when Chevron called, I told my business partner, I was like, I don't give a shit what we have to do. Make sure you sign that client. I don't want that logo on the website.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's exactly what we are now, like sort of when it comes to expansion, we have nice logos. For instance, in Germany, these global players who everybody knows, like Adidas, Bayer Pharmaceuticals, and guys like that, Volkswagen is using. So there are a lot of lighthouse logos that we can use. Of course, in the US, we have in our space like companies like Cognizant and Ahead, who are like quite prominent IT service providers there, but it's still sort of early stage. But you need those logos that you can build your story around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. We used to do stuff. We've had the firm now for 8 years, and it's interesting. We were pitching somebody yesterday, and now we've placed like 4,000 candidates. We have like 400 5-star reviews on Google. It's so much easier. It's so much easier to sell now. And I was thinking as we were pitching yesterday, I was like, wow, this is a lot easier than it was back in the early days when we didn't have shit. We had like 2 logos on the website. We had like 10 reviews. It gets easier. You know, once you get the traction, right? Once you can build the references, the logos, man, it gets so much easier.
Yeah. The thing is that when you are we are really disrupting this space, and we are changing the way people should think about the whole thing. So that's our biggest challenge when it comes to growth, that we have to explain and educate the market a lot. So I sort of get these Henry Ford moments. I guess that back in the day when he came up with the idea of automobile, like he went around and asking people, okay, how do you feel like horses are slow and they are like unreliable and expensive and maintain all that. I have this thing that takes you from A to B with the defined speed, and you know where all this, everything's automated. Then people are like, I'm super excited, but where are the horses? These are the questions that we get. Okay, I love it, but I still can I do some scripting and coding somewhere?
Interesting.
You don't have to. You don't have to. You just configure the logic. You just look at the end result that you're aiming. You're looking like, how do you want to work with your IT partners? What is the process flow? And then you just configure the logic, do the mappings, and everything happens automatically. I don't know, but what about the scripting?
It sounds like you close or have closed most of the deals. Are you at the closing table with these big companies closing the deals, or is it somebody else?
Thankfully we have a sales team.
Okay. Yeah,
but if it's
Adidas, you go to that meeting, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm supporting as much as I can. I love sales.
I can tell you've pitched it a bunch of times. I want to ask you, if you don't mind, I want to talk a little bit about, in the last few minutes we have, I want to talk about AI and tech and the advancement of things and how it might affect your world. We are recording this on today. Today's the 13th. Well, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. I guess I better go get something for the wife this afternoon. Anyway, February 13th, 2024 is when we're recording this. How are you feeling about the advancement, the light speed advancement of AI right now, and how it might affect your business? Are you nervous? Are you excited? Both? Kind of, and what do you foresee happening?
Well, from our perspective, it's the best, by far the best thing ever happened in our business and for our business.
Okay.
Large language model and the capabilities it has, it holds a huge potential for us. Shortly put, AI is like a kid coming from school. So if you have a kid who has gone through the North Korean schooling system, you have a kid who has gone through the US schooling system, and you ask the same question from both of these kids, you get different answer because they have a different context.
Okay.
Now in our business, we've been running the service now for like almost 10 years. we have hundreds of millions of messages that we've been brokering between the largest companies in the world, the biggest enterprises, largest service providers, and we have a library of super complex logic.
Okay.
As a context, that's our IP.
Okay.
What we've been now doing is that we've been teaching AI with that context. So the next level for us is that everything will be like human to human. So through our interfaces and utilizing the context that AI can now, it's now like taught, it has learned it. You can just write like you try to chat GPT, and it provides you the right, like you have a complex use case with multitude of, integration points. You just write that I want to do this and this, and it can provide you the solution in a click of a button. Like it's amazing. It's like, and that's our IP, is the context. Nobody else has that.
I see. Okay, very good. Is that, would a comparison to what you just said on a tiny scale, would it be, I guess this would be an analogy, maybe a comparison. So I built a little GPT that was called Steve Urban's Career Advice. And I put the transcripts from our books. We've launched a couple of books. I put the transcripts from all the podcast episodes that I've done on career advice and stuff. And I fed it into the GPT. Is that
exactly? That's your context. That's your context.
Okay.
That is your IP, and now it's utilized by AI, and it provides huge value because in our space, actually applies to your example as well. That there's so, like in your case, I'd guess that there's so much information that it's humanly impossible to consume everything and learn it by heart just like that.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You have question, you want to utilize the context.
Bingo.
So with us is that the logic is so complex that it's humanly impossible to manage that such a complex logic, but AI can do it. It's perfect tool for that. And the best thing is that we are not stealing anyone's IP. That's our IP. And that goes into the risks of and challenges that AI now has, that most of the stuff is kind of a stolen, at least from European perspective. It's somebody else's IP.
It's tricky. Tricky waters.
It's a little bit tricky. And but it's thinking about YouTube. When YouTube started, it was mostly stolen content.
Yeah, it's true.
Videos, like people were broadcasting somebody else's content, somebody else's IP. That's how it took it off. So maybe it needs a little bit of this, like gray area.
What do you think? I'm not a doomsdayer or anything like that, so don't get me wrong. I don't think Sarah Connor's coming for Terminator or anything. But do you think, like, let's use Elon Musk for example, or some of the other folks that are predicting some sort of universal pay because robots will do everything.
Yeah.
Do you foresee that? Juha, do you think we will eventually live in a society where there's just a universal pay because robots and technology are doing most of the work and humans are just enjoying their, I don't know,
whatever
hobbies or whatever? I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
I'd guess that there's always a need for sort of somebody to look into the decision from the human perspective. And I guess that humans are still needed. I think the best quotes that I've seen is that AI won't take your job, but somebody who can utilize AI will take your job.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what we're going to. But if you think of from the positive perspective, as at least in the Western societies, we've been telling hundreds of years almost now, like you need to be able to read, to be educated, to be so like leveling your status in society. And now, just by speaking with AI, you don't need to be able to read.
Yeah. And all you got to do is be able to ask the question. You just have to be able to ask the question.
Exactly. And think about how many like hundreds of millions of women, for instance, who are not allowed to go to school, and the kids are not allowed, the girls are not allowed to go to school because they want to keep them in their, where they are.
Yeah.
And now we have these tools and utilization that you don't really have to it democratizes the world in the best
It does.
case.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But of course, the downside is this like a doomsday computers taking over, but maybe it's part of the evolution. Then, if we cannot cope this, then we are not. Are we really in the right spot in the food chain?
It's interesting. It's a fascinating time to be alive. It really is. I'm 57, so I'm kind of hoping it hurries up because I want to see what happens before I die. Right? I want to be like, oh, I want to kind of see my granddaughters. I have 2 granddaughters, and so they're going to experience things that I probably can't even really imagine right now. I'm guessing. But it is going to be fascinating to see what happens. I kind of think, I feel like, tell me what you think of this prediction. I don't know, we're almost out of time here. I feel like there's going to be this massive short-term, immediate disruption where it's going to eliminate some jobs. It's going to create some chaos in the workforce until kind of the dust settles with new jobs and creation and universal pay or whatever's going to happen. So there's going to be this, I feel like there's going to be this weird short-term fucked up messiness until it kind of settles in. I don't know. Yeah. Is that, I don't know if I'm right, but
yeah, we as humans, we don't really have a really good track record of bringing all the people on the same wealth level. We've been really good at putting everybody on the same poor level of the world, but I think it's a little bit built in that there will be this sort of levels of people who are on the top of the top dogs, and they will utilize and they will benefit, and then 1% of the wealth goes to them.
You're right, and that is the scary part. Yeah. Who controls the information flow? That's the part that makes me nervous.
Because we already have the capabilities to stop world hunger, but we don't do it.
Exactly.
So it's a little bit like, if you think about Rome Empire back in the day, why it collapses, that they just become too big, and people around them wanted the same stuff that they had. And you can maybe see some similarities with the current times.
That's true.
If you look at the Asia, African countries, it's there was in the news this Chinese New Year, and it's a big event, of course. Chinese New Year just turned, I think the New Year started a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Year of Dragon. And Chinese only, during that time, they make 9 billion travels.
Really?
Within this period of time. 9 billion.
Wow.
And it's mostly still within China.
Yeah.
But imagine that expanding.
Well, there's only, how many people are in the U.S.? 350 million.
350, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And what's the population of Finland?
A little bit below 6 million.
6 million? I didn't know that. 6 million? Are you serious?
It's a village. Finland is not a country, it's a country club. I told you.
So, wow. That's because it's frozen and nobody wants it. It's too cold. Is that right? It's too cold?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. Well, it's going to be fascinating. Anyway, to wrap that conversation up, it sounds to me like ONEiO is capitalizing on what's happening with AI and large language models, and you're doing everything you can to stay on top of it and use it to your advantage, which, if you're listening to this episode, I highly recommend. In fact, if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner and your head is in the sand and you're not paying attention as to what's going on with tech and AI, you are behind. Like, come on, man, you got to get with it. Yeah. And by the way, I still get on the podcast and talk to people that haven't even used ChatGPT yet. And I'm looking at them like, you better fucking pay attention, man. Like you better,
Yeah.
you're come on, man. So sounds like you're on top of it.
Yeah. Happy to be here. I think it's also like privilege and also great opportunity for companies like us. Yeah.
Congratulations on everything you and your founders have built, my friend.